Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 54 units of real estate. So today I want to talk about why real estate is seen as a terrible investment now. So it's end of 2025. And I kind of want to go through the cycles of real estate, at least in my mind, and then why it's perceived as bad, recently. So let's just start after the great financial crisis. I mean, I wasn't investing back then in 2008. That's when I graduated high school. But I think people started investing in 2010, all the way until I would say 2022. The BRRR strategy was very, very popular. So, what's the BRRR strategy? It's when you buy it, right? You renovate it, you rent it out, you refinance it, you pull out your money, and then you repeat that process. So, this was a great way for people to leverage money in order to scale a portfolio using the same capital that you have. And this is what Bigger Pockets was got famous for because, if you work a W-2, if you have a business that doesn't make crazy amounts of money, you have to kind of leverage what you have in order to scale and get started in real estate. So the BRRRR strategy is very good when homes have been appreciating, and obviously, hindsight 2020, but from 2010 all the way to 2022, what do we have? We had massive appreciation, and it was super accelerated during COVID. So obviously, if home prices are skyrocketing up due to the market, due to lower interest rates, um, and rents are going up too, the BRRRR strategy seems very good because you can leverage your same money, pull out all your capital, have $0 in the deal, and once you kind of do that, you can pull all your money, leverage it, rent it out, and still cash flow, right? Factoring in, your property tax, your insurance, your principal, your interest, your HOA, your property management, your, CapEx reserves. You can still cash flow a little bit, right? So that's what people call infinite return on your money because you have $0 in the deal. So that was very, very popular, during that window, 2010 to 2022. And same with fixing and flipping, right? Like you could buy a property, right? Or you can buy it wrong. And because the market appreciate like crazy, you could over renovate the property. You don't have to renovate it that much, and you can flip it and make a profit. Because when interest rates are low, people can afford more home, right? So that's why people were overbidding like crazy during COVID when interest rates were 2% because you can afford more home when interest rates were 2%. So BRRRR was very, very popular from that window. Like when I started investing in 2017, BRRRR was still very popular, right? And I've only done probably two BRRRRs in my whole investing career. For context, my 20 unit as well as my property I just bought recently, I only done two BRRRRs. So I did it actually during the bad times. I did my first BRRRR in 2023 when interest rates were skyrocketing. I did a BRRRR this year, right, when interest rates were higher. But BRRRR was very, very popular, and flipping was very, very popular. They were on easy mode because, you could buy it wrong, you could go over budget and renovation, and you still make money, right? That's what a lot of people have made money. And now, flippers and the BRRRR strategy is not as favorable. I'll get into that later. But call it 2010 to 2022, the BRRRR strategy was very, very popular. In 2017, when I started investing, the strategy that was the most popular was Airbnb. Everybody was doing Airbnb because number one, you got more cash flow potential. So like for example, if I were to buy a home in California and rent it for 3,000 as a long-term rental, people would buy it as an Airbnb, and typically, ideally, you'd get three times the income, right? So you get around closer to $9,000 to $10,000, but it's more active, right? If you have a property manager, they're taking 30% cut. You have to furnish the property. You have to, take care of people because it's more transient, right? Like if you have like a heating issue, you have to fix it immediately. It's more like a hotel, right? Hospitality business. So if you pay a property manager, they take a big cut of the expenses, which is 30% versus traditional long-term property manager. It's around 8 to 10%. And you have to pay for utilities. You have to furnish the house real nice. You have to create an experience, right? But there's a big boom of Airbnb from 2017, I would say probably until 2022, 2023, right? Especially like when COVID happened, people couldn't go anywhere. So people were, renting out on a short-term basis, like nice cabins to get away from everybody. So it was really popular. I remember like everyone that started investing when I did at 27, they didn't do like a long-term rental model. They just went straight into Airbnbs because you can make higher income potential. You can make more cash flow that could potentially replace your job. It is more active. And if you materially participate in an Airbnb, which a lot of people do, you can do tax write-off strategy, right? So let's just say I make 100,000 W-2, and then I buy, let's just say a house that's 300K that I use as an Airbnb that I self-manage. You can do a cost segregation study on that. You can do bonus depreciation. On average, you can probably write off about $100,000. So I can wipe off my $100,000 W-2 income. So that's how people say they pay zero in taxes, because they're using the short-term rental loophole to wipe off their W-2 income, right? So that's why it was very, very popular with people my age with that. But like you said, it's more active. It just wasn't for me. And like you said, a lot of people I know, they owned a few Airbnbs. They made 20K a month, net after all expenses. And then, they're able to like retire or had the option to step away from their W-2 job. But fast forward to today, what's happening to all those Airbnb operators? Number one, Airbnb is not as popular anymore, as you guys can tell. Like I remember how many courses for Airbnb people were doing rental Airbnb arbitrage, where you can like just rent a home for $3,000, set up as a long-term or short-term rental, and then like make the difference, right? But like if you fast forward to today, hindsight's 2020, the only people that made money doing that were the people selling the courses on how to rental arbitrage or how to do Airbnb, right? So like now, Airbnb is a lot harder. You have to create an experience, right? It can't just be like a cookie cutter home like my house I'm sitting in right now. You have to make it themed, right? You have to make it like, is it a bachelorette theme? Is it a bachelor party theme? Is it Pokemon theme? Whatever theme it is, you have to really, really create an experience. And we see a lot of the Airbnb operators like Rob Abasolo. Sorry about that. If you look at a lot of the big Airbnb operators like Rob Abasolo, who used to be on Airbnb or Bigger Pockets, I think he got like fired or let go, whatever. Like he's selling a lot of his Airbnbs now and going into like boutique hotels. So, that's why I never went into Airbnb model, because I didn't think it was scalable. Like most people that I knew that did Airbnb, they basically made money from it and 1031 exchange it into like a hotel, which is a more scaled up version, or they just sold it all and got out of Airbnbs. Like I don't know how many like realtors I met who used to own a lot of Airbnbs and now they just sell real estate, right? So like to me, it was kind of telling. I'm like, okay, well, if you thought Airbnbs was so great, how come you own zero now and you're just selling them, right? So that's why I kind of knew that like it was kind of hyped, and I never like went into that hype. And I think, like you said earlier, like Airbnb, it's a good strategy, like temporarily. Like let's just say you have a W-2, you don't qualify for real estate professional status. You can treat your rental that you buy for 1 year or 6 months as a short-term rental. You can materially participate, and then you can essentially get that tax write-off against your W-2 income, against your business income, and then convert it to a long-term rental. So when you buy it and use it as a short-term rental, make sure it works as both a long-term rental and a short-term rental, right? You don't want to depend on it working only as a short-term rental, because it gives you not many strategies. So what does that take in today's market? It probably takes a larger down payment. It takes making a good experience out of it. And then knowing that, eventually you're just going to convert it to a long-term rental, because that's the more sustainable, process. So Airbnb had its like nice little run now, right? But I know like a lot of people that I knew that started investing in 2017, they're selling their Airbnbs today. So what happened after short-term rentals fell out of favor? What became popular next? Midterm rentals, right? There's always a new phrase, a new hype for something. So midterm rentals is similar, but instead of staying 1 to 7 days for short-term rental, they're staying 3 to 6 months. So this became popular with like travel nursing, work in healthcare, or doctors, or let's say you're displaced from your home because of water damage, because of fire damage, and you need to stay for somewhere for like 3 to 6 months. So, from there, that became the new hype. It's less passive, or it's less active, right? And you still make more money. So typically a midterm rental can make you double what a long-term rental makes, in my mind. So if a long-term rental is 3,000, a midterm rental is 6,000, a short-term rental is 9,000. That's how I kind of see it. But once again, I never really went into the hype of midterm rentals as well, because well, most of my rentals weren't near hospitals, and then so I don't know, it just didn't seem it seemed too active for me. Like I went into real estate wanting it to be as passive as possible, right? And that might be an oxymoron because real estate is very active. So once again, you could do a midterm rental model, but make sure it works out as a long-term rental as well. After midterm rental fell out of favor, what's popular right now is rent by the room. So rent by the room is very popular right now. It's pad split. I did rent by the room when I was house hacking. And, for me, it just seems like too much of a headache because imagine if you have 40 rooms. So let's say you have four bedroom houses and you have 10 of them. You have 40 different rooms. You have 40 different tenants. At that point, if I'm dealing with 40 tenants, I'd rather just have 40 units, right? In an apartment or something. Um, and, for me, from my experience of house hacking, like the tenants never take care of the property as well. Like they just treat it like a hotel. So you're going to have to hire a maid to come clean and bake that into the cost. Obviously, they're going to have utilities. And then when they don't pay for utilities, they just, leave the AC on the utilities. They use it like crazy. Like I have tenants right now where it's a makeshift duplex and I pay the utilities and my utility bill is always like, um, $1,000 a month, but I bake it into their rent, right? So I charge them a little bit higher rents to bake in the utilities, but like I said, they just can leave on the utility or the heater or whatever as long as they want. I can't really control it. Yes, you could put like a Nest thermostat there and control the temperature a little bit, but it generally from my experience, I don't like covering the utilities. Um, but anyways, the intent of rent by the room is you're supposed to make more money to have more cash flow, but it's more active, right? And then, these people are more transient. And from my experience of rent by the room, like there's a lot of conflict, right? Like, oh, like I didn't break this thing in the kitchen. This other tenant broke it. And you ask the other tenant and they'll point the finger at the other tenant and the other tenant will point the finger at the other tenant, right? It's just like me um, working my W-2 job, right? People just, no one takes accountability. They just point fingers at each other. So for me, I don't want to deal with that, right? I deal enough of that in my work. I don't want to deal with that, with my real estate portfolio. So, the newest hype is rent by the room. So as you can kind of see, it went from short-term rent, it went from BRRRR, short-term rental, midterm rental, rent by the room. That was a sequence, right? And also what became really popular in 2020. Oh my God. So this is when in 2020 was when interest rates were low. And that's when I scaled my portfolio the most. This is when I went from like I bought 80 units within like an 8-month period. I bought my 26 unit, I bought my mobile home park, I bought my 20 unit. Right? I don't want to talk much about it, but I scaled massively, right, during this time. And syndication became so popular during this time. Oh my God. Everyone beca- loved syndication, right? Even I was considering doing syndication. Now, I'm thankful I never did it. But what's syndication? Syndication is when at a group of people, they're called general partners, and they would raise money from limited partners. So typically high income W-2s, think about your doctors, your pharmacists, your lawyers, your dentists. And then they would take that money using other people's money and they would acquire like a C-class apartment complex like what I did, right? So the general partners have no money in the deal. When they close on the apartment, they get paid an acquisition fee of 1 to 3%. And then they'll basically raise the down payment, they'll raise the renovation, they'll fix up the apartment complex like what I did, right? Maybe I'll fix up all the units. Let's say it's 10K per door. You have 30 doors. That's $300,000 of renovation. You fix the roof. You fix the exterior paint. Maybe it's $400,000 all in. And then from there, you're able to, let's say, double the rents, right? Let's just say the rents, I know that sounds evil, but let's just say the rents were 500 and now they're 1,000, which is market rents, right? So you get the double, you get to raise it to market rents or close to market rents. Maybe market rents are 1,200. And because it's an older apartment, maybe you can raise the rents to 1,000, right? And if you double your NOI and your cap rate stays the same, so the value of multifamily is net operating income divided by the market cap rate. So if your NOI is 50,000 over a 10 cap, the value is half a million. If you double your NOI to 100,000, assuming it's a 10 cap, the value is now $1 million, right? But what was happening during COVID? Interest rates are going down. What happened to cap rates? Cap rates went down too. So if your cap rate goes down, your value goes up. So now you have a $100,000 NOI, instead of a 10 cap, maybe you're at an 8 cap. So now the value is, I can't even do the math off the top of my head. Let's just call it $1.5 million. So you bought it for, let's just say, $500,000, and now it's worth $1.5 million. So because interest rates are low, you're doing a huge cash out refinance. This is basically a BRRR, right, for multifamily. You pull out your down payment. You're going to pull out your renovation costs. You can pay back your investors, have $0 on the deal, and you might pull some money on top of that because your new loan is 75% loan to value. So I don't know what 75% is of 1.5 million. Let's just call it close to $1 million to tax free to pay back the down payment, to pay back your investors, to pay back the renovation costs, and then you have some money on top of that. And when you do a cash out refinance, the syndicators get a 1 to 3% disposition fee. The syndicators get a 1 to 3% asset management fee on a monthly basis. So that's why it was so popular, right? But it was so scary to me because I was seeing a bunch of people doing syndication. They had no experience in multifamily. Like they were just like me starting off. And I was just like, it doesn't make sense for me to syndicate because I've never done it before, right? That's why I want to do it myself first to prove a concept. But a lot of these people, they owned like 1 or 2 single family homes, and everyone and their brother was becoming a syndicator, right? Like if you guys joined a bunch of Facebook groups back then, a lot of them would partner up, syndicate together, raise money, and a lot of them got burned, right? Like Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets, who used to be at Bigger Pockets, he basically started a fund of funds, and he would basically vet other operators, syndicators, use his personal brand, his social media presence to like raise money to then invest, and he'd get a fee. But then a lot of the people that he invested in like Texas, I think a lot of his deals went to zero, right? Where like all the LPs lost their money and they didn't get any distributions. So I remember just thinking to myself back then, like, no one ever became rich investing in a syndication. The only people that become rich are the syndicators because they're raising fees, right? They're getting acquisition fees, they're getting asset management fees, they're getting disposition fees, right? And then sometimes they don't have money in the game. So like that was so popular, but now it's interesting seeing all these syndications blow up because maybe you bought a nice apartment in 2021, and then you got a 5-year note, and then 5 years, which is now, your interest rate doubled or tripled, right? Maybe you went from like a 3% closer to like a 7 to 8% interest rate. Your insurance probably doubled or tripled because that's how insurance happened. And then maybe your property tax is going up. Now your because the market's turning and it's harder times now. Like maybe you're having more evictions, like I'm experiencing. Maybe you're having capex slap you in the face, like I'm experiencing. Maybe you're having to repair your units and turn them over. So what is that all doing? That's lowering your net operating income, and on top of that, your interest rate's up. How does that affect your cap rate? Your cap rate's now up too. So now a lot of these syndicators, they're underwater, right? So they're going to walk away from these deals because they have non-recourse debt, lose all their LP's money, and then like just make an apology video, right? I'm waiting for Brandon Turner's apology video when it comes out that he lost a bunch of money. So it's quite interesting seeing that happen. And then now the syndication model is like completely dead. Like I know syndicators are desperate because I literally am getting called by syndicators that I reached out to like 5 years ago, like in 2020. Like they're like still calling me to this day, like recently. I'm like, I've never heard from them in the past 5 years, and now they're calling me. That's when I know they're getting desperate, right? So let me kind of summarize all these trends and the hype, right? So 2010 to 2022, it was the BRRRR strategy. Airbnb was probably 2017, probably up to 2022. Midterm rentals became popular in 2022 to like I think present day. Present day, it's like rent by the room is popular. Syndication was really popular, I would say, in 2017 all the way up to 2021, right? But then as you see now, like none of those models in my mind are sustainable. Like if you're a good syndicator, um, you can make a lot of money from that, but you really, really have to operate it um, like a business. So it wasn't really for me. Like when I did real estate, I didn't want to like respond to investors, and I would feel terrible, like honestly, if I lost like people's money. Like when you syndicate, the first people that you source money from is typically like your kind of circle, right? Your friends, your family, your aunts, your uncles, maybe your coworkers, and then eventually, as you build a personal brand, you can raise from like other people, right? But to me, that is what really scares me about the syndication model. And like a lot of people are doing it without any experience. Like, I don't know how many groups of people I saw where it'd be like 5 people, they like real estate, they got excited, started a syndication, raised money, and then they probably lost money, right? So like I said, I don't know anyone who's gotten rich investing in a syndication. That's why I never invest in a syndication. I don't plan on investing in a syndication. I don't want to be a syndicator either, right? Like that's not the model or why I did real estate in the first place. So now that you kind of know the hype of real estate, let's go into why real estate is seen as a bad investment now, right? So obviously now, and by now I would call it, let's say 2023 to present day. Now, if you do a BRRRR strategy, it's a lot harder, right? Because you have to buy right. And a lot of the sellers, if I'm being honest, they don't want to sell low because maybe they bought it a long time ago. Maybe they're optimistic of how prices were, like during COVID when it was people were overbidding. Maybe they're not motivated because they locked in a 3% interest rate, and like, what's the motivation to sell? So it's harder to buy right. I mean, you can still do it. It just requires like 3 to 4 times the effort to get a deal now versus before. You have to renovate it correctly. And with renovation, it's easy to go over budget. I'm talking from experience here. I renovated 90 units, and how many times out of 90 did the budget hit exactly or under? Very rare, right? It always goes a little bit over because once you start ripping out walls, you find more issues. And once you find more issues, you have to fix those issues. And when you get permits, they require you to fix more things, right? So like it's just always the nature of the business. And then you have to be able to refinance it, but interest rates are like, well, I locked in a 6.6% interest rate, which is like my highest interest rate out of all my portfolio. So interest rates higher, but interest rates don't matter as much because if your loan amount's a little bit small. So if your loan amount's like 250, the difference between a 3% and a 6% interest rate is not going to matter as much. But if you live in California like me and your loan size is $1 million, the interest rate between a 3% and 6% is huge, right? I just did the math. Like my primary residence, 850K loan, 6%, 6.5% interest. My principal and interest is $5,500 a month. If I had a 3% interest rate, same loan, I'd be about $3,500, which would save me $2,000 a month. That's crazy, right? But if I were to do the same example for a loan of like, let's say 280K, it might only be like a couple $100. So not too significant there. And another interesting thing is you basically have to have everything perfect, and then you can't even pull your money out in a BRRRR. Like you'll leave some money in the deal, which is fine, right? It's not the end of the world to leave money in the deal. But like you said, BRRRR is not as like cool and sexy as it used to be, right? And then once you do a cash out refinance, maybe your best case, your cash flow is like $100 to $200 a month after you factor in capex, reserves, maintenance, all that stuff, right? Best case. So it's just like, $100, $200 isn't going to like retire you from your job, right? If you only have one of these units. So that's why like the BRRRR strategy is not seen as well, and real estate is not seen as well. Midterm rental, short-term rentals, yes, it can get you more cash flow, right? If you operate midterm rental and short-term rental well, and assuming that your city didn't change the laws on you, and you can operate a business and you don't mind doing it, you can make more money, but it's very, very active, right? I don't want to leave my W-2 to manage an Airbnb. That sounds terrible to me, right? I don't want to do that. I'd rather just work my W-2. So like for me, I don't like that model, but a lot of people don't want to deal with that headache. Now, unless let's just say you work a regular job, maybe you don't make as much in a W-2, maybe it's worth it, right? But it's active, right? And once people do it, they thought real estate was passive, but Airbnb is more active. Syndication, I think people are really skeptical about syndications now because they've invested $100,000, $50,000, lost their money, got burnt. All the syndicators who were new and thought they can make easy money, they're probably all wiped out at this point, right? That's why, like, I think you can buy great multifamily deals in the next 2 years because a lot of the syndicators that raise money, they basically think that, well, um, they can pull all their money out, but they're getting burned. So you can buy some good multifamily at maybe 50% discounts in the next 2 years, I think, if you really want to find multifamily, because it's going to be from syndicators that got slapped in the face, because they weren't operating it well. And like I said, it is hard. Like even me, like my 26 unit is doing very well. And even that took a hit, right? Because when you have 5 tenants that maybe 2 stop paying, 3, you have to like, they leave because they maybe move somewhere else. and then like you have to repair all the units, and then you have more vacancy, it's going to hit your cash flow, right? It's going to hit your cash flow. So that's kind of a thing as well. Like a lot of syndicators are getting slapped in the face, and once they get slapped in the face, they don't want to do it anymore. A lot of people who invest in syndications got burnt. Like they're probably just thinking like, oh, I should have just invested, um, in the SP 500 or something more passive, right? That's why I'd rather just do that versus invest in a syndication. Or if I were to buy real estate, I'd just rather do it myself because I want that control, right? There's no such thing as passive real estate in my mind. So I think the syndication is never a good model unless you have a really, really good operator, right? Like I just know some OGs like Ken McElroy, never invested in syndication. I don't know how he's done, but he's been around for a few decades. If you invested with him in a syndication, let me know his feedback. But I know a lot of people who invested in Brandon Turner's from bigger pockets, and they lost all their money, right? And then I think Grant Cardone is another big name. Like I think he has no distributions whatsoever, but he's doing well himself. Um, Fix and flips. The hype is dying on fix and flips. I remember during COVID, everyone was doing fix and flip, and like you said, when home prices were skyrocketing, when rental rates were skyrocketing, everyone was making money. Wholesaling used to be very popular too. It's dying as well. So like as you see, there's a very negative impression in real estate because like they see that it's the returns is not worth the effort, right? So the ideal of real estate is you can leverage. Um, you can leverage. You can basically have no to low money down the deal, still cash flow, have appreciation, have principal pay down, and use that money to buy the next deal. But like I said, it's hard to do that now, given higher interest rates, given that home values have been pretty stagnant for the past, I'd say 3 years. Um, like I've had, I think in 2022 till today, if you track Zillow, like the homes that I own, they've been pretty much stagnant. Like they haven't really gone up, they haven't really gone down in California. But if you look like from 2017 to 2021, like every single year it was going up by like 80 to $100,000. So it's interesting seeing that. So like a lot of people are seeing, you know what, real estate's not worth the headache, right? Like if you only own like 2 or 3 rentals and they best cash flow $200 a month, you're just like, well, I make $600 a month, right? And I have to deal with this headache of like the tenant, the toilets. If you have one bad squatter tenant in your landlord friend or tenant friendly state, so they get burned, they're like, I don't want to deal with this real estate, right? So that's why a lot of people are going away from real estate. So in a weird way, it makes it easier for people who do want to dive into real estate to buy deals because a lot of people um, who haven't been in the game long or don't know how to operate or haven't improved their operations are all leaving. So that's what like I've been focusing on is improving my operations, right? Like how can I optimize during this time? And then maybe I can wait for deals to come if I want to buy. But like I said, I am kind of hitting the point with real estate where I hit my enough and like I don't need to buy more real estate. If I buy more real estate, it just adds more headache to me. So like I said, with real estate, why is it falling out of favor? Back to the topic. Sorry for my distraction, my ADHD. Um, Basically, the BRRRR strategy is hard to do with higher interest rates, right? So now you have to buy real estate and you have to put a large down payment down. Like if you want to make real estate work today, I hate to say it, but you have to put 30% down, 40% down, and people don't want to hear that, right? People want to put 10% down, 5% down, no percent down, right? That's if you're buying it traditional, right? So if you're buying traditional and you want it to work in today's environment, 30, 40% down, it'll cash flow. But is it returning your money, the return your time? Is it worth it for some people? Probably not, right? Maybe they'd rather just invest in SP 500, set it and forget it and not worry about it, right? Number two is that you can do creative financing, right? Creative financing is still popular right now, but obviously it takes a lot more work to pitch someone creative financing. Like seller carry first, seller carry second, take over the loan subject to. A lot of times people don't understand this. So you have to be able to explain it. And there's more, hurdles with seller financing. It's a little bit more complicated than like straight buying. So it does add a layer of complexity to your portfolio. But if you're willing to do that, you can get a lot of good deals with creative financing, right? Like I always pitch a creative financing offer every time I buy my real estate, right? As an option. But like you said, I bought my mobile home park seller financed. I sold my mobile home park seller financed. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, I don't really like doing it myself because I hate relying on someone paying me through my note. I'd rather just have the money myself and have control over it. I think I'm more of a control freak. So that's why I don't like doing seller financing. But hey, if the owner is open to it, I will give it a shot, right? In terms of pitching it. So, and it takes a lot of reps to pitch creative financing. So, like, do you have the patience to do multiple conversations, to build trust, to understand their situation, to make it a win-win situation all around? If so, creative financing can work, right? Like Pace Morby is very well known for doing creative financing and buying a lot of real estate creative financing. Right now he's buying a lot of like RV parks creative financing, and he's raising, private money to fund his down payment or whatever. Um, Another thing with multifamily, so I would say like small apartment complexes, you really have to manage your expenses, and it's hard, right? You have to keep your insurance costs as low as possible. But a lot of times, I've had my insurance go from 20,000 to $30,000 in 1 year. So then I have to shop around my insurance constantly. Or I had my property tax. Like some people had their property tax, like in Texas, double as well because they're constantly reassessing it. You have to contest all that. And there's a lot of headache, right? When you do multifamily, like 5+ units, you have more tenants, you have more toilets, you have more termites, more headache. And like, for me, a lot of my apartments, the rents are between 500 to 800, lower end rents. Like sometimes like when I have one repair issue, it may cost me $600 to replace the toilet or to replace the refrigerator, and then my rent was $600. So like, even me, I'm just like, oh, if I were to buy another apartment, I'd make sure I'd have at least $1,200 in rent per door, right? Not what I'm doing right now, where I got started. That's why I'm very open minded to like selling, both my apartments for the right price, right? If it makes sense. And then, because I was talking to another investor, and she owns a couple hundred units as well, and she was just like, my apartments are always for sale for the right price. And I was just like, interesting, because I always just had a mindset of like always buy and hold, never sell. But now that I've owned like apartments a bit longer, I'm like, it does make sense. Um, it's really good in terms of that sense of um, you basically, for the right price, you can offload it, right? So now I'm just thinking about, okay, yeah, I'm open to like both my apartments being on sale because you never know, you might get a 1031 exchange buyer who wants to buy it and they're willing to pay you top price or over asking. Then you can sell it and then, make a pivot with that. Like you said, so the past, I'd say 3 years, rents have been stagnant, appreciation has been stagnant, expenses have gone up, interest rates have gone up, been stagnant. So it's playing real estate in hard mode, right? It's really playing real estate in hard mode now compared to like, obviously 2010 to 2022. Um, so it's quite interesting time. Like even me, I'm just like not as like bullish in buying real estate as I was in the past because I hit number one, I hit my enough, and number two, yeah, it is more hard than it used to be. And at this point, um, as I built my portfolio, as I built my net worth, I'm not as motivated as I used to be to like buy real estate as I was. When I had nothing, I felt very hungry. I felt very deprived. I would buy everything. Now that I'm like more well fed, I'm not as motivated to like buy deals. Actually, at this point, I kind of want to sell deals to simplify, to start paying off debt, right? Because I want to optimize more for like peace of mind, for less stress, and for eventually my retirement portfolio as I step away from my W-2. So it's a different mentality that I've been pivoting towards recently. If you've been watching my videos, um, so yeah, that's why real estate's not seen as very appealing right now. Like if you buy real estate today, you need to hold on to it for at least 10 to 15 years, right? Do something that's sustainable for a long period of time. I don't think Airbnb is sustainable. I don't think midterm rental is sustainable. I don't think syndication is sustainable. Long-term rental is sustainable, but your returns are going to be very sad in the beginning, right? Maybe $200 a month per door after you putting in 25, 30, 40, 35% down. Maybe you're self-managing the property yourself. Um, but you have to wait out this bad time of, fear in the real estate market. And then once you start hearing everyone and their mothers and their uncles talking about real estate, that's when you know it's going to boom again, right? I remember hearing that of Airbnb. So if you can wait for that next bull run, because remember, real estate goes in cycles. And real estate was in a great cycle from 2010 all the way to 2022. I would say from 2022 till now, it's been kind of flat. Maybe it'll go down. Maybe this is the bottom. I have no idea. But eventually there's going to be another cycle. So if you can wait out that next cycle and ride that next cycle, you can build up a large net worth from real estate, and it can help you retire from your W-2 job. Once you built up enough units, and then you basically eventually sell some units to pay off some units to own some free and clear. At that point, I think you can comfortably like retire, but it's gonna take 10 years, right? So I was fortunate to ride the last cycle from 2017 to 2022, to build up enough units, to build up enough equity, to basically be able to have options to sell, to pay off debt, and then to basically like step away from my W-2 job, right? But don't be discouraged. Like I said, you have to have a 10-year view when you do real estate. If you want something quick and easy and passive, you're better off just investing in the SP 500, dollar cost average that every single month, pumping as much money as you can every single month doing that, right? Max out your 401k, max out your IRA. You can do whole life insurance if you're at higher net worth. You can invest in brokerage accounts and just max fund that. Do that for 30 years, you'll do great, right? If you start at 18, you can be done by the time you're 48, right? Like I didn't know about investing when I was 18. Um, so it's less headache. And like even me, like I don't even know, like once I hit my portfolio to the point where it's like cash flowing a lot and I can basically step up from a W-2, like I don't know, I might end up diversifying myself into more SP 500. Maybe I'll invest in oil and gas. Because oil and gas gets you nice tax write-offs like real estate on your W-2. Um, and it's supposed to give you monthly passive income. But in order to know, you have to invest $100,000. So, once again, you could lose $100,000. But if it does work out, you can make a lot of money from that, right? So I do want to try that one day, but it doesn't make sense until I've basically become financially free, until I stepped away from my W-2 job. And at that point, if I have so much money that I can risk 100K, then I'll try it, right? And obviously, I'll document my journey with you guys. Because if you follow Robert Kiyosaki, he talks about real estate and oil and gas are his two investments, because oil and gas is very similar to real estate, but the hard part is finding a good operator that doesn't steal from you, right? So that's the hard part. I'm struggling to find a good operator in oil and gas. If you guys know one, let me know. I want to know your experience, if so. But yeah, that's why real estate is not seen as the best investment today, right? I think a lot of comments I've been seeing is, hey, just dump it in the SP 500. The Anton Daniel guy who did a commentary on my video, he was just like, yeah, it's easier just to dump it into the SP 500. He buys real estate all cash because he makes a bunch of money from his businesses. But a lot of people cannot do that, right? I know I couldn't do that. I was working at W-2 and, not a little bit, but not a lot, to the point where I can buy real estate cash. I did like the leverage of real estate. Um, and obviously, real estate is the most beneficial if you get the tax benefits. So if you qualify as a real estate professional status, that's probably the best benefit of real estate. But I don't qualify as a real estate professional status. It's hard to qualify as real estate professional status because you have to self-manage your rentals. You have to do like cost segs and bonus depreciation. You have to be in the real estate business. Maybe you're a real estate broker, a mortgage officer, and even then, you get audited quite a bit. So you have to document your hours on a log, right? Like I have a guy where he is a mortgage broker, self-manages like a bunch of rentals, and he still gets audited, right? So, and he's like, I'm the definition of real estate professional status. So, it's as you kind of scale portfolio up, you kind of want simplicity, because scale itself is already complicated. So that's why I can see that real estate is not as appealing. But like I said, because a lot of people are not interested in real estate, there's less competition. So for those of you who are brave enough to want to buy real estate of larger down payments, willing to put in the work for following up for creative finance offers, willing to submit like hundreds and hundreds of offers and getting a lot of rejections, because all it takes is one yes to get a good deal, right? It took one yes to get my first apartment complex after making like 300, 400 offers. So that's really like, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to wait 10, 15 years? Are you willing to grind your W-2 job like I have for the past 8 years and scale a real estate portfolio, right? Are you willing to live frugally, basically, let's say you take in 10,000 bucks a month and you live off of like, 2 or 3 thousand bucks, and then you have a large savings rate. Can you do that for a long period of time as everyone else's lifestyle inflating, right? And going to like fancy events and blowing their money, right? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to, once you own real estate, learn to operate it very well? And it takes a while to learn. Like even me to this day, like I've been doing it for 8 years, and I was so focused on scale that I probably was neglecting operations. And now that I'm not scaling, I'm really focused on my operations now, right? Like I'm really tracking my expenses to a T. I'm really trying to like lower my insurance. I'm trying to manage my property managers on a more, micromanage basis now, because now I see every single expense in real time. I have to improve the expenses in real time. Now I changed my model now that if you have any plumbing repair, HVAC repair, or electrical repair for both my apartments, you need to get approval from me. So like before, I used to let them just do it. Now they have to like go through me. So now I'm watching the expenses even more. Um, and basically, like, how do I optimize for occupancy? So like I'm basically like watching my property managers a lot more heavily than I was in the past. Um, and then I'm always like looking at my property tax, my insurance. I'm looking at every single expense now. Like I'd even noticed like my one property manager was charging me, their 10% property management fee, but it hasn't been rented out in the past like 3 months because we had to evict the tenant. So like I even noticed that little, $180 expense, right? Before I would have not noticed that when I was in my scale mode. Um, so so yeah, if you're willing to put up with all that and put in the work, I mean, you can get there, right? But you have to be willing to put in that work for 10 to 15 years and grind. So if you're able to do that, it's a buyer's market, right? You can find deals, but you have to be patient. So, anyways, thanks for listening to that rant. Let me dive into some questions now. So please start dropping your questions in the comments, and I'll start answering them. So I see Momo. BRRRR and flipping were easy mode during low interest rates and appreciation on steroids. Completely agree. A lot of fix and flippers were doing very well in 2010 to 2022. It's super easy to BRRRR and flip and seem like a genius when there's massive appreciation, rents are going up, interest rates are like 3%, right? So yeah, it's true. And now that's why BRRRR and flipping is not as popular now because interest rates are higher. But I imagine once interest rates go low again, it'll start to be easier. I prefer to focus on rent ready rentals for now. So I assume that's turnkey real estate. And I've been doing that too. I've been buying my latest 3 properties I bought were all turnkey, new construction. So this house I'm in, that I'm living in, new construction, they didn't want to do renovations. My Jack and Jill property, which I bought in Huntsville, brand new as well, turnkey. Maybe I make like $200 a month for each of the properties in Huntsville. But once you factor in like CapEx, maintenance reserves, and all that good stuff, it's a break even deal, right? But luckily, I locked in 3-year leases. Aioli ravioli, real estate's always going to be a good investment. I think that statement is true if you have a long-term perspective. And by long-term perspective, I mean at least 10 to 20 years. If you can hold real estate that long, it's always going to be a good investment in my mind. But do you have the patience to hold it for 10 to 20 years to make it work? And also, real estate can be very good if you can take advantage of the tax benefits. So if you're doing a short-term rental loophole for maybe 1 year, then convert it to a long-term rental, could be a very good strategy. If you are self-managing, you qualify as a real estate professional status, and you get tax write-offs against your business income or your W-2 income, very good strategy, right? Because if I can save, you know, my tax rate is probably 40% here in California. If I can like wipe off my W-2 income and save 40%, that's quite significant. That's more than any cash flow I'd ever make from real estate. That's more than any appreciation right now that I would make. So if you can take advantage of the tax benefits of real estate, it's very strong, right? So that's why I know like Anton Daniels is doing. He's buying houses all cash, so he has no leverage, and he's probably doing a cost segregation study as well as bonus depreciation because his wife manages his portfolio, so they qualify as a real estate professional status, and he uses that to wipe off his business income that he makes through YouTube, and then whatever tax money he gets back, he uses that to buy more real estate. So that's the game you want to play, right? I'm not that level yet. Maybe I will, right? Because I don't qualify as real estate professional status. I can only imagine it once I become a real estate broker, and then once I step away from my W-2, and then I do self-manage some rentals. But like I said, it is hard to qualify. So Andrew, do you have your tenants change their own HVAC filters? It's very important because the machine can break down, the filter gets clogged. So I always go and do it myself every few months. I'm getting tired of doing it myself and I'm just thinking of getting a better system. I don't trust the tenants to do it themselves. So yes, you are right. It's hard to trust tenants to do that stuff. In some of my rentals, I have the reusable filters where you just can hose it down. And usually when a tenant complains about like, hey, the AC is not as hot, or sorry, the AC is not as cold, the heater is not as hot, I'm like, hey, did you clean the filter? Right. But then also, like, I usually do visit my properties like once a year. Fortunately, I'm in California. So, like, it's mostly just like the heater. Like we don't, and sometimes the AC. Yeah, sometimes the AC, sometimes the heater. But in SoCal, the temperature is so moderate. Like I think one of my properties doesn't even have an AC system; only has a heater system. Um, so I don't actually really have a system. But I think the tenants, I assume they do it, but to your point, they probably don't do it. So, usually if there's some issue, um, you can do it once a year. So I don't really have a good system either, but I know for the ones where my property manager manages it, I think when the tenant moves out or every year, they just do their checklist. And I think part of it is checking the HVAC filter, right? So the ones I'm self-managing, I probably need a better system myself. But for the ones my property managers handle, they have a checklist that they take care of when a tenant moves out or every single year when they check it. But yes, that's the joys of self-management. That's the joys of real estate, where you're going around. Tenants will never care about the property as much as you, unfortunately. Like my tenant had a toilet flapper leak, that little flapper that you can buy for $5 at Home Depot, and they want me to send a plumber to fix that. I'm like, dude, you just can, I'll Amazon ship a toilet flapper to your house for $5, and then you can replace it yourself, right? Save me like $100. But welcome to the joys of owning real estate. Um, let's see here. Now that I've done it, do you think SP 500 is better move for the passive investor? So if you want pure passiveness, if you don't want to deal with real estate, maybe you tried real estate, you hate it, you got burned by it. I do think the SP 500 is a better move. It's super passive. You just literally throw it every single month, buy the total US stock market, buy the international stock market, get some bonds, get a good percentage to diversify, automate it and forget it. And you do very well in life, right? Like I don't talk about it much, but I have between my wife and I, probably about $1.5 million between our stock accounts, 401k, IRA, whole life insurance, brokerage account. Like we have about $1.5 million. So, it's super passive. I don't really think about it. So I can focus on my real estate. But I know a lot of real estate investors, like myself included, like I could literally, if I'm sick of real estate, sell all my real estate. I have about $10 million in real estate and $5 million in debt, right? So I have about $5 million in equity. If I were to sell all my portfolio, and obviously I'm gonna keep my primary here and pay it off. So let's just say, for easy math here and being generous, I sell $5 million of real estate. I have $4 million left over after taxes. I'd probably take $1 million to pay off this house, right? So I have $3 million effective income. And let's just say I dump that with my current stock portfolio, which is close to 2 million. Let's just make it $5 million for easy math. So $3 million from the sales of my real estate after paying off this house, plus the 2 million that eventually my wife and I will have in our stock portfolio. So that's $5 million dumped into the SP 500. If you do the 5% rule of that, what's that? That's 250K a month or a year. Sorry, 250K a year, which is about 20K a month. So it's 20K a month, and I have a paid off house, which is $2,000 a month to live. So literally, my living expense is 1/10 of what I'm living off of on the 4% rule. So like I know that can be my exit strategy if I get sick of real estate. That's why like once I kind of realized this and connect these dots, I was just like, what am I doing buying more real estate? Like I already hit endgame. I just got to optimize what I got, and I'm good, right? And like I said, I can literally get sick of real estate, sell everything, and from there, like I'm done, right? Like 250K a year is enough for us to live, for my wife and I. Like we're not super bougie, we're not like super materialistic. Like that's enough for us. That's probably more than we need. So like once I realized that, I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, like don't mess this up, Steven. That's the way I'm thinking now. So that's why I'm like, if I buy more real estate, I could mess it up. I could build a house of cards. I could over leverage and lose it all. So I don't want to do that, right? So that's why once I realized that, I'm like, hard stop, optimize my portfolio. But I always know in the back of my mind, if in 10 years, 15 years, I'm sick of real estate, I just can sell it all and dump it into SP 500. And in fact, that's probably what I would do, right? Or I know a lot of like real estate investors, or maybe they bought, like they're my parents' age, the boomers. They own a bunch of properties, built up a lot of equity in them, obviously, sick of managing the rentals. They just like sold them all, paid taxes, and dumped it into whole life insurance. And with whole life insurance, it's tax free when you invest the money. But yes, there's more fees and whatnot associated with whole life insurance. So that's why I only invest or suggest investing in whole life insurance if you have a higher net worth, right? If you're getting started off, term is good enough, right? Honestly, term is good enough. But once you're in a higher net worth, um, I would consider like multi-millions. Then you can consider, investing into like, whole life insurance and max funding it, right? So I think it's a game for the rich. But if you talk to a life insurance agent, they talk about it's the game for everybody. I don't think so, personally. So yeah, it's super passive. So I would say if you don't own any real estate, try a deal yourself first. And I would start off with a turnkey deal. So just go buy a new construction deal in a cheaper market like Alabama, Oklahoma, California, whatever. Just get a new construction deal, right? In a cash flow market in the Midwest. If you want to use me as a broker in like 5 months when I become a real estate broker, I can help you buy one in Alabama or Oklahoma. But find a new construction deal, Lennar, whatever builders in the Midwest, own a deal, see how you like it. And then from there, determine, okay, do I like this? If so, buy another one. If not, just invest in the SP 500. It's super passive, right? Like I may well be in a situation where one day I might have kids, right? And then my kids might have zero interest in real estate. Like I see this all the time. Like I think um if you guys follow One Rental at a Time, Mike Zuber, he has one kid, I think one daughter, and he has quite a big portfolio. I think he has like 174 doors, and I think he wants to buy more. And I think he said that his daughter has zero interest in real estate. So, like in my mind, I'm just like, well, if my kid has no interest in real estate, then then what's the point of legacy, right? I've never really bought into the whole legacy narrative of real estate. Like, okay, you pass on a bunch of real estate to your kids. If they hate real estate, then what's the point? They're probably just gonna want to sell it, take the money, and do whatever they want, right? So, like, if I have a sense that my kid hates real estate, like, and then let's say I'm sick of real estate, then I have no problem selling it and dumping it to SP 500, and then my kid can inherit a bunch of stocks from the SP 500 or whatever. Um, or you can dump it into like life insurance and then they get a nice lump sum, once you pass away. So like that's why I've never really focused on legacy. And like honestly, like when I think about legacy, I don't even know who my great grandparents are, right? And like even me, like I'm the only one that knows about my grandpa, but my kids won't know about my grandpa, right? Which is their great grandparents. So like I think legacy is a little bit overrated. Unless you're just passing on mass amounts of wealth. Like for me, if I just pass off like, let's say I have two kids, and each kid gets to inherit a paid off house. That's good enough. Like they have a place to live, but they may not even want to live wherever my house is that they inherit, right? So like it's really hard to say. But like if my kids they're interested in real estate, and then I don't want to like pass off a portfolio that's a headache to them if they have zero interest in it. I hope one kid has interest in real estate so I can continue the portfolio. But a lot of times the kids don't like it or they may not like it. It's hard to predict, right? It's hard to predict with that. But yeah, in his case, I'm like, my God, like, why are you buying? Like, in my mind, I'm like, if I was Mike Zuber, like, why would I buy my real estate? Like, you have enough for yourself. Like at this point, just if your kid has no interest in real estate, I would just start doing the reverse, just sell some, own the rest free and clear. So it's easier to manage, right? Like it's easier to manage paid off rentals versus like um, rentals with debt on it, especially if you hate real estate, right? For the next generation. So that's what I would do. So either A, I would sell all my real estate or just sell it, pay off the rest. And now my kids will inherit a bunch of free and clear rentals. That's easier to manage. So they can hire a property manager, pay the 10% fee, and still like cash flow because there's no debt, right? So like that's something that I've thought about. But yeah, answering to the original question, if you want passivity, don't invest in a syndication. I'll save you $100,000. Just dump it into SP 500. You're better off doing that, right? Automate it, forget it, and let it compound for 30 years. You won't regret it. So here I see someone invested with Grant Cardone syndication. He is making distributions, but they're not that great. I'm curious if you're still on, what percentage are you getting on that money? But at least you're getting distributions, right? It could be a lot worse. Let's see here. The filter should be changed every 2 to 4 months minimum to protect the unit. So yeah, I'm definitely not doing that, Andrew. So maybe I am damaging my units because of that, but I'm definitely not changed. They're not being changed every 2 to 4 months, right? Even I'm thinking about my house. I've lived here for a year and a half. I don't think I've changed my own like filter yet. So thanks for that reminder to change my filters. Then I'm not sure is it Gabe? I would put a bidet toilet for my main bathrooms on my home rentals. Interesting. For me, I think bidets are cool for my primary residence, but for a rental, it just seems like more of a headache for me. But it is a nice feature. If you're doing a higher end rental, then maybe a bidet is nice, right? I remember when I went to Japan, you go to a public restroom, you open that door, the freaking toilet seat will open itself up, and then it'll heat itself, and you sit down, and it's very comforting. And then it'll wash your butt for you. So maybe it's a luxury I never experienced fully. But for me, I would never consider bidet in a rental unless I'm doing a high-end short-term rental, unless I'm doing a high-end rental. But I'd only do it for my primary residence. So anyways, I don't see any more questions. Thank you for hopping on this live stream. Hopefully this kind of gave you the history of real estate and why real estate was hot in the last, bull run. And then now why in the past 3 years, it's been seen as not as attractive. It has been seen as not as favorable. But on the same side, I'm kind of aware that a lot of people who don't take action like to feel validated for not taking action. I mean, I hate to say it, right? So let's just say, like, I've been thinking about buying real estate for 5 years. I never bought a piece of real estate for the past 5 years because I'm too scared. I have analysis paralysis. And now that I see real estate is doing bad, and I'm hearing people like me who own real estate say nothing, or not, that real estate is not the greatest investment right now, it's validating me doing nothing, right? But like I said, if you buy real estate with a long-term mindset, you will make money on it. But can you wait 10 years, 20 years of dealing with rentals to make it worth it for you? Right? If you can do that and you have that patience and you have that grit and resilience, you can make a lot of money from real estate, right? Like I've made way more from real estate than I ever will in my pharmacy career. So thanks to real estate, I can even say, like right now, if I literally sold all my real estate right now, I can retire in probably about a year. If my focus was to sell my real estate, I can retire within a year. That's crazy. And I'm 30, I'll be 36 at that point. That's crazy, right? I can retire by 36 or 20K a month with a paid off house. I never would have gotten that with just my W-2 job, right? So, like, if you extend your time horizon for how long you own the real estate, it's always a good investment. But you have to survive that long and buy in the right location, right? And build a system that works for you. So I always said this, my ideal portfolio, if I were to go backwards in time and I can wave a magic wand to pick my ideal portfolio, it would be to own 4 properties in Orange County with big lots in them. And I'd want a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, at least, as the main house. Hopefully, I'd call it turnkey, so it doesn't need much renovation. So in Orange County, that's between 800 to, let's call it, $1.2 million. So let's just call it $1 million on average. I don't want to buy 4 of those properties and put enough down payment so that the main house can break even despite self-management, right? And then maybe you have to go cash flow negative if you factor in repairs and maintenance and CapEx. But at least you can cover a PITI with the rents. And the rents are about, let's just call it $4,000 a month in Orange County. So I own 4 of these properties, right? So each property gets $4,000 in rent, and that's just enough to cover the PITI. You self-manage your property. You have to go out of pocket if you have a major repair. And then since you have a big lot, I would build ADUs, right? So you can build a backyard ADU in each one of these units. So you can build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot in each of the backyards, right? Ideally, you would do that first. And that's going to cost you, I was quoted roughly around $250K for 1,000 square foot. But once you factor in all the permits and the fees and landscaping and all that, you're probably closer to maybe 350 to like 350K. So if you can pay for those cash or use a line of credit, your cash flow on that one rental is going to be high because a 3-bedroom can rent for, let's just call it $3,700 ish, right? I just looked on Section 8. That's how I know. So once you cash flow on that, you can, if you own it cash, then, even better, you have a higher cash flow rate. But if you use a line of credit, maybe your monthly payment, your line of credit might be $2,000 a month, but rents for $3,700 a month, and you're self-managing it. You can use that extra cash flow to pay down that line of credit. And eventually, you basically own those free and clear in the back. So now the ADUs in the back are owned free and clear, and they're cash flowing a lot. And then if you're brave and if it makes sense, you can convert the garage to a 1-bedroom, 1-bath junior ADU. And the junior ADUs can rent for about $1,200 $2,500 a month in Orange County, and it's probably going to cost you between $80 to $100,000 to convert that garage, right? So now, if imagine once you finish all that, now you have 4 properties. Each lot has 3 units, so now you have 12 doors. But if you think about it, the detached ADUs and the junior ADUs are owned free and clear or have debt on it. So that's when you start cash flowing. So now each of these properties, if you add the 3-bedroom in the backyard, the 4-bedroom main house, and the 1-bedroom garage, that's $10K a month each property. That's $40K a month gross, right? And then I imagine the PITI on those $1 million homes. It's probably going to be like, I don't even know, $6,000 each. Let's just call it. So that's 24K. So now you have 40K in gross income. Your PITI is roughly around 24K. So that's 16K a month in positive cash flow. Obviously you get to factor some repairs, maintenance reserves. So maybe you set aside $6,000 for that. You have $10,000 a month in positive cash flow. Then you use that 10K a month to start paying down one of the main houses. And eventually, once that's owned free and clear, you have 40K a month with no debt, and you're just paying property tax, insurance, and whatever repairs, CapEx, maintenance. Like that'd be my ideal portfolio. If I were to go back in time and do that, I would get 4 properties, build detached ADUs, and then convert the garage, own that all free and clear, and you're riding off to the sunset, right? At that point. And if your main house is paid off, even better. So like that would be my ideal portfolio if I were to like go back in time and do that, right? I wish I bought more. Like for me, I went to go buy apartments when I could have just bought more in Orange County if I decided to go down that route. But who knows? I didn't really know much about the ADUs back then. In 2020, it was a newer concept. But now that I know about it, like it could be a cash cow, but you have to pay for it like a lot of cash, right? Like it's kind of nice where you can build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $350 and it rents for $3,700. That's the 1% rule, essentially. And see some more questions here. A Central California property. I'm currently looking at one single family home, a 1-bedroom, 1-bath ADU in 5 acres. The owner's asking 1.5 million. That's a huge industrial development coming soon. Buy. Need to know more about that property. Curious to know how much the main house rents for. It's nice that there's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath ADU. But there's obviously a lot of acreage there. So if you can develop more ADUs or there's better zoning, better, right? So let's just say that you buy that single family home, and because of the industrial development, you're able to rezone your property and to build more units. Maybe you can build more ADUs. Maybe you can build a 4-plex on there. If so, and you have that capital, and that's your unfair advantage, it may be worth buying, but you really have to have a long-term outlook on that. I see Captain Planet. I attempted real estate back in 2009. It looks like you got screwed over by a couple that took 9 months to evict. I tried a restaurant after 3 locations. I failed. I'm going to try AI next. So I think Captain Planet, I think if I was in that same situation where my first deal was that bad, where it took me 9 months to evict the tenant, I probably wouldn't be doing real estate today. Like if that was my first experience of real estate, I'd probably be saying, yeah, just dump it in the SP 500, call it a day, right? So I'm very fortunate that my first deal went very well. And that's why I say you want to make your first deal. The point of the first deal is to make you like real estate enough to want to continue. If you get burnt by your first deal, you don't want to continue. Like if my mobile home park, like for me, I got burned by my mobile home park. I never want to do a mobile home park again. I never want to touch a mobile home park with a 10-foot stick because I had a bad experience with it. I lost 100K, right? So like the point of the first deal is you want to make it as easy as possible, and you want to make sure that it's successful so that you continue to buy real estate, because the longer you own real estate, if you do it for 20 years, you'll make a lot of money, right? So that's a really great point, and unfortunate that you went through that. But yes, in California, you can have squatters, you could have people do cash for keys. I have one renter, like he bought a 4-plex, has a bunch of bad tenants. He just wants to pay them $5,000 each for cash for keys for them to leave, right? So and then once you evict it, they trash the house. You're paying the mortgage still. So yeah, it's stressful with real estate. Like what I tell my tenants that don't pay me, I'm like, dude, like I have to pay the bank regardless if you pay me or not, right? That's what's stressful about real estate and debt, obviously. So yeah, and then it seems like you tried restaurants after 3 locations. I failed, lost. Restaurants are hard business too, right? Like, I think the profit margins on a restaurant are so slim. I think it's like a 10% profit margin on a restaurant. And if you have like one bad month or one major event, that 10% margin goes away. That's why I like, you know, becoming a real estate broker or like doing the social media business because I want stuff with high profit margins, like YouTube, right? Like YouTube cost me no money, right? YouTube cost me no money. Like it's free. I have internet already. I have a laptop. I have a phone. And yes, I don't make much from YouTube. I think the whole life of my channel on YouTube, 3 years posting every single day, I made $7,000. I think that's nothing. That's like a month's pay on the lower end for me, right? But that $7,000 is pure profit. So even though like the income is not much right now, but the future potential is high, right? Like if you look at Graham Stephan, he's making millions of dollars from YouTube. And yes, he has editors and he has a bigger operation than I do, but like still low profit margin. And that's why I like becoming a real estate broker as well. Like when I become a real estate broker, I'm not going to have an office. I don't want people underneath me. But if I sell a home, a new home, like a Lennar home, it's super passive. And, from there, I could basically, if I sold a home, let's say I sold a partner home, like a Lennar home in California, the commission is going to be $30,000. That's pure profit, right? I don't have an agent underneath me. I don't have an assistant underneath me. I don't have overhead costs. I don't have to pay for their employees like insurance and whatnot. I don't have to deal with that headache. It's all profit, right? So if I sell 3 homes a year, that's 90K. That's mostly profit. So that's why, like for me, I really do businesses now where it's high profit margin. If you guys follow Alex Hormozy's content, he's always big about high profit margins. Because if you have high profit margins, you can reinvest that money to improve marketing, to hire employees. But if you have 10% profit margins, like owning a restaurant, it's hard, right? A lot of times you're paying for employees, food costs, your lease agreement, lawsuits. You have employees that don't show up. It's just a lot of headache. So like, it's not even worth it. That's why I never even did the restaurant business. Like, it's not even worth it for me, right? Like if I were to, I'd rather like if I were to do the restaurant business, like I know some people in Orange County, they just cook from their house and they straight up just advertise on Instagram to say, hey, you want Vietnamese fried chicken? Then submit your order on Instagram and you go pick it up at my house and then they drop it off. And eventually once they started making more money in business, they opened up their own food truck and then they would drive around to certain areas because it's a lower operating cost. And then once their food truck did better, then they opened their own restaurant, right? But restaurants are very low profit margins at all. So that's why I would never open my own restaurant, right? I opened my own pharmacy and I lost money on that because pharmacies are expensive. We're expensive, right? So like, and then insurance. Sometimes you bill insurance and they pay you less than the drug cost of the drug. So I can pay $10 for the drugs, but insurance pays me $5. So I just lost $5 on the deal. Like, that doesn't make sense. So that's why when I do a business, I want something high profit margin, and then I'm willing to be patient for it. That's why what people ask me, why do I like post on YouTube? Like despite being worth multi-millions, despite making nothing from it, really, it's because I see the upside potential, right? And then luckily for me, I like just ranting about like personal finance, real estate, what mindset and wealth, right? So it's natural for me to do that. But I see the long-term potential in this, right? Right, where one day this could be is unlimited income potential, right? With media and personal brand and all that stuff. Like I don't think I'm gonna get to Graham Stephan's level, but who knows, right? It's up there. And like I said, it's low profit margin, right? I don't pay employees. I don't have a studio that I rent out. I don't like even have an editor. So I keep it very raw, authentic, and organic. And it costs me no money. So whatever money I make, it's all profit. So like that's the type of business that I want to do long term, right? So that's why I want to become a real estate broker long term, sell new construction only, and then continue doing YouTube, right? So it's kind of synergistic in that sense. But yes, do I make much from that? Probably not. My W-2, my real estate makes me more money right now, right? So that's why I'm fortunate that once I can retire, like I could be doing it not for the money, but ironically, once you do it not for the money, that's when you end up making a lot of money from it, right? That's why they say like a lot of Twitch, I know a lot of like Gen Zs like Twitch streaming now, and a lot of people say they didn't do it for the money; they just like playing video games, and eventually the money came with that. So let's see, I see some more questions here. Any buyers in Georgia? I have homes in Fayetteville. Definitely more. I did look in Georgia for a bit for mobile home parks when I was looking at mobile home parks, but just not my market. But yeah, it's a more affordable market. So if you live there, have an unfair advantage there, it can make sense. How do you feel about some of the tenant-friendly laws in California? Obviously, if you watch Graham Stephan's videos, he talks about like how crazy Santa Monica is with tenant-friendly laws. I think it's kind of crazy, but I don't know. I feel like because I self-manage all my properties in California, like if you just treat the tenants well, and, like you're responsive in terms of like their requests and you communicate with them frequently, I feel like I haven't had any that major issues with them. Yes, I do have one tenant where like they're behind like a month's on rent, and then I'm working on a payment plan with them. Um, but I've been like super patient with them, right? Like a lot of people would be like, "Hey, like they owed you this for like over a year," and maybe very well they might just run away from the property one day and lose the money. But I'd rather just work with people and then be collaborative and understanding, and then see where that goes. And knowing that I'll probably get burned, but I'd rather do that as well with my tenant. So far, haven't had a pretty good experience. But yeah, it can be challenging if you have a squatter and you're trying to evict them. It takes forever to evict it. They trash your property. So that's why I try to do higher end rentals in California, because I want to attract a higher end tenant that hopefully doesn't take advantage of those tenant friendly laws. Um, I see Ryan Panetta doesn't recommend being a broker. Um, Well, I mean, I'm becoming a broker not as a source of income. It's just because, like, I feel like people come to me anyways to be like, "Hey, Steven, where are you buying your homes in Huntsville, Alabama?" And I kick it over to my property manager slash realtor, and then she gets easy $10,000. I'm just like, well, if I was a real estate broker, I can get that $10,000. So I'm not gonna be. I'm only gonna sell new construction because I'm a lazy broker, and I'll obviously help friends and family. But I don't plan on having people underneath me. I don't plan on doing anything, and maybe I'll hate it. But if I hate it, I only wasted like maybe $1,000 to become a real estate broker. And worst case, if I'm a real estate broker, I can go into houses and film content in there, right? So that's my worst case scenario. Like I said, I don't plan on making money from being a broker, a lot of money. If I do make a lot of money, great. But I only plan on selling brand new homes, on our homes only. Um, funny thing about Ryan Panetta, I bought his Amazon dropshipping course or store, Lunar Ecom, and I lost $30,000 as fast as I dropped it down, right? And he was recommending using a credit card to pay $30,000 for the Amazon dropshipping store because he's gonna make you money, but he didn't make me money. So don't have the greatest impression of him right now. He kind of hides that under the rug. And if you look at his business model now, he makes a lot through like I think his mastermind and his coaching, right? And then I think he used to fix and flip a lot of real estate. I think the fix and flipping market has kind of like dried off a little bit. So he's making the most of his money from probably coaching and mentorship. And then even like a Brandon Turner, he makes a lot of his money through his like coaching and mentorship masterminds as well. So kind of my 2 cents about Ryan Panetta. And then ADU sounds like the latest craze, like Airbnb. Yeah, maybe that it is the latest craze, but I think for me, ADUs do make a lot of sense. Like if I were to finance my ADU using a line of credit, the rental income I can get is enough to cover that um, line of credit payment plus extra cash flow to pay it down. And then once you pay down that line of credit and you own it free and clear, your cash flow increases significantly. So I do like the ADU. Is it hype? It might be hype, but for me, um, it's kind of that it just makes sense for me numbers wise. Like if I can dump 450K to build a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, to convert the garage to 1 bedroom, 1 bath, um, and basically own that free and clear and rent it out for let's say 60, $200 a month. That's at least $5,000 in positive cash flow. That's pretty good, right? So yeah, there's that as well. Vegas market, don't really know much about Vegas. I know Vegas is getting hit pretty hard right now because I think they say Gen Zs don't gamble as much, they don't drink as much, they don't club as much compared to millennials did. I guess millennials were freaking crazy and go to Vegas and trash our bodies and go clubbing and get alcohol poisoning. But I think um, Gen Zs, I don't think they drink as much. So I think Vegas is like dying because of that. That's why Vegas is focusing more on experiences. That's why they have a football team there. They're trying to get a basketball team. They're trying to get a baseball team. Took all the Oakland teams, right? From the Bay Area. And I think they're trying to pivot towards more experience based to attract to the Gen Zs. So I think right now Vegas is not doing as well, but if you see a temporary dip, Vegas is cheaper. It's more tax favorable. So it's nice in that sense. But I would consider moving to Vegas maybe if I was sick of LA. Maybe, don't know. Um, so we'll see. But I don't really know much about it. I don't plan on investing in the Vegas market, to be honest. I'm happy enough investing where I am right now. So Captain Planet says I actually met him a couple times. He's not the most humble guy. Yeah, I can't imagine him being humble. um, Like I remember he was talking about the lunar ecom store when he first launched it. Like it was the greatest thing ever. He was making like $5,000 a month in positive cash flow, and like he was pitching it as like you can get a line of credit, you can trust me, you can do this. And I remember he opened up a Walmart store for me, a Walmart drop shipping store, and literally within that store opened a week later, it got shut down. So then he pivoted and gave me an Amazon store. And then once that opened up, I remember he was selling, I forgot, he was selling like they were selling some type of product and I was losing money on that product every time he sold it. So every time he sold it, I was like losing like $60. And I was like, what the heck? I'm like passively losing money. So then after that, they pivoted their strategy where they created like a Facebook store using my Facebook account and an Etsy store. And then literally by using my Facebook store, he got my Facebook account like suspended. And then after that, I was just like, you know what? I'm sick of this. Just take the $30,000. I lost my money and I just closed all my drop shipping stores. And then he then like a year later like posted an apology video about like how that went bad, and he was basically throwing his partner under the bus to save his own skin, right? So if you look at Ryan Panetta's like YouTube channel now, I used to watch him too starting off, but he's not getting as many views because I think a lot of the goodwill that he's built up by building his YouTube channel, like people are getting burned, right? Because they're not getting as much value from maybe his courses or his coaching and all that stuff. Um, he is a lot more not as humble, right? So that's why for me, I don't edit my videos and I'm very truthful and organic. And I think that's the next wave, right? Like if you guys follow my channel, I tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, the transparent truth about real estate. And yes, I do have coaching. And yes, I do have a course, but I'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. So in a weird way, I'm like an anti-marketer because like I'm basically telling you how hard multifamily real estate is right now when I have coaching and courses on multifamily real estate, right? So it's like kind of counterintuitive, but for me, I'm just honest to a fault. I'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, but I just want you guys to have a realistic vision of what real estate is. Because when I was doing bigger pockets, when I was listening to YouTube channels, they created such a unrealistic view of real estate. And I was just like, wait a second, like you make it seem so easy. Like, and it's not, right? Like I'm here to tell you, as someone who's been in there for 8 years, scale to 90 units is not easy, right? It'll get easier for me over the next 5 years, right? But the first 8 years is not easy, right? Like there's months where like you have a bunch of repairs, a bunch of capex, and you're coming out of pocket from your W-2, right? Or you're dipping into your reserves to cover that, right? That's why you have reserves. So, it's really that's why I'm so transparent about it, right? Like I'll tell you guys, like even if I make it big on YouTube, I'll tell you how much I make from YouTube. I don't care, right? Like I just want the real inside truth of that. But if you think about it, I've been posting on YouTube for 3 years every day just to get to like 11,000 subscribers. And I don't even make that much money from it, right? Like, so like you really have to do it because you want to do it. It's not because of the money, right? Um, and and a lot of people say, oh, like, why are you wasting your time creating content? Like when you make so much money from your W-2 and your real estate, I do make a lot of money from my YouTube and built up a network from real estate. But I just felt like the content on YouTube was too weak and lacking. If Bigger Pockets is the biggest source, it's only one side of the coin. And then if you look at a lot of the hosts on Bigger Pockets now, they don't own much real estate. Right? I own more real estate than most of those hosts. So like, why would you want to listen to people who owns no real estate? It makes no sense, right? It's just like listening to like me tell you how to buy crypto when I own no crypto myself. It's weird, right? Like that makes no sense to me, right? So that's how I kind of view Bigger Pockets now. I'm just like most of those people don't even own real estate. I think that top guy doesn't own that much real estate from it, so it makes no sense to me. Like, why would you listen to that? I'd rather listen to somebody who actually owns real estate and hear their true experience and thoughts. Yeah, which is why YouTube is nice because it gives you like authority, a brand in the field that you can leverage. And like I said, like some people can like you can look up to someone like Ryan Panetta. Like I trusted him in the beginning, bought the Amazon drop shipping store. I realized it was a shady product, lost my money. And now, um, it basically, I have such a negative impression of Ryan Panetta now. And like, if you look at his YouTube channel, like some of my videos get more views than him, and he has like 400K subscribers, right? So I think it came around finally, right? Where like, he basically made a killing from fixing and flipping and mentorship, and that's all it's keeping him alive right now is his mentorship program, because I don't think anything else he's doing is doing that great. Um, so I don't. He makes most of his money. Ryan Panetta for sure makes most of his money through courses, mentorships. If you look at his business model now, it's that. Because you build a loyal following, fan base, and people love you, good times and bad times, like just like football, right? Um, so it's quite interesting, doing all this, and then that's why times are tough. So like um, with business and with real estate and building wealth, you know, a lot of it's part luck. I'll be honest, a lot of it's part luck, right? Like any successful billionaire, multimillionaire, it's a combination of persistence, consistent improvement, learning as you go, and you sprinkle some luck there, right? Like I don't get me wrong, like when I bought in 2017, I didn't know it was going to skyrocket. All the home values would skyrocket or interest rates would drop during COVID. I just bought real estate because I could afford to, and I was willing to manage it myself. And then, fast forward 8 years, people call me lucky, but I'm like, well, I took action and I toughed it out during those hard times, right? And then I benefited from that. Um, so it's part luck, and I'll admit to it, right? Like anyone that's successful, it's part luck. Most of the billionaires out there, they're like, yeah, they just got lucky and it blew up. So there's always luck in the equation. And I don't deny that, right? I'm very open about that. Like, yeah, it's part luck thrown into the formulation, but I was persistent. I took action. I lived frugally, and I invested that. So, really, a lot of it is a little luck in the equation. So knowing that I know it's luck, even with my real estate portfolio, that's why I want to sell some and take some debt off, because I don't want to. I want to cash in on this supposed luck that I got. Right? It's the higher power blessing me with this wealth. I don't want to lose this wealth now. So that's why like I'm pivoting and wanting to pay off debt. If you notice in my content. So, that's why, right? And like I'd say Ryan Panetta, in his case an example, yeah, he hit big on YouTube. His fix and flips are doing well because the market was hot. It was probably selling a lot of coaching, mentorship. Like even me, I sold most of my courses in 2022, 23, I think, when real estate was hot. But now course sales, no one buys courses because, everyone and their mother bought a course and didn't benefit from it at all. And it just felt like it was a scam. So that's why now courses are dead, right? It's because of that, because everyone bought it, got burned by it, wasn't successful from it, and then did it. But from my experience, if you want to be successful in the course, you got to take action and consistent action. And a lot of people are not willing to do that. Right, like my most successful like students in my mentorship, they just took consistent action. They sent out mailers, they made offers, and then they eventually got an apartment complex. But am I taking a year? Am I taking a year and a half? A lot of people are not that patient, right? That's why like courses are like dying now, and people are very skeptical of like YouTubers now. So that's why I think authenticity, unedited videos is the next wave. That's why I've always been doing it, because I've been lazy to edit, but like I always believe that to justify my own laziness. But that's why I think raw organic content. That's why live streamers are doing very well, Twitch streamers, because you feel like you know them, right, on a very personal basis. And that's why I've been doing a lot more live streams now, because like I know that that's the move to go, right? Like if I'm retired one day from my W2, I'll do a live stream every single day. Right now I can only do it 2 times a week because I work full time still, and I don't want to burn myself out. Um, Captain Planet, he lost his house that was on the hill. 6 million was the estimated cost he mentioned, but building process didn't go through because he didn't have the funds. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I remember him when I was watching his content, is talking about that house on the hill that he wanted to sell to a developer that was next door, and he wanted to hold on to it. But yeah, maybe like you said, you can make big money, but you can lose big money too if it doesn't work out, right? So maybe he's getting hit with the rougher times now. But I think he has a pretty nice house from what I remember that he's living in, but it's still a nice house, but maybe not as like grand as the house on the hill. I don't wish any ill on people. That's not my personality, not my type. But yeah, sometimes I don't want to be the person who was once rich and not rich anymore I want to be the guy that got rich one time and stayed rich, right? So I know that. That's why I want to like pay off debt, never lifestyle inflate, and basically keep things very humble and frugal, right? Like if you see my lifestyle, I've never inflated my lifestyle. Like if you see me in the streets in SoCal, like you can't even tell I'm worth multi-millions and own a bunch of real estate. I look like I'm some broke Asian guy walking down the street, right? Like most of the time, that's my baseline, right? So you can't even tell, right? By the car I drive, the way I talk, the way I keep my mannerisms, you can't even tell. I blend right in, and that's intentional. Um, so what I think of Thatch Nguyen, um, so Thatch, it's quite interesting. So he basically does the BRRRR strategy in Seattle. He basically is big on ADUs. So the ADU laws in Seattle are a lot more progressive, where you could, let's say I buy a house for $1 million with a nice lot in the back. So what he does is he buys the main house to do a BRRRR. So he'll buy it for, let's say, 800. He'll buy it. He'll fix it up, basically pull out his money. Hopefully that deal breaks even. Maybe makes a little cash flow. Maybe it's cash flow negative a little bit. And then what he does is once he owns that property, he'll then section off that back part of the ADU of the land into a separate APN number, a separate lot. And then what he does is he'll use the land value as a down payment to basically do a construction loan. So you're using the value of the land that you section off as a down payment for the loan, for the construction loan. And it costs about $400,000 to build a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 to 1,200 square foot home. And then you can rent those out for close to $4,000. So that's the strategy that he's doing himself. And that's what his mentorship program talks about. So basically, he actually is the funder of the construction. So he owns the funding company as well. So he's making money off fees. He's making money off the interest rate. So he'll say like, hey, I can fund your ADU. And basically he's charging like maybe some points. He'll charge a higher interest rate for you to get that funded. So he makes quick cash as well. But that's what his strategy that he does. So I think Thatch is more legit, I would say, because he owns a bunch of rentals, but he makes a lot of his money through his coaching program, through his private money lending that he owns, and he uses that money to basically pay for his rentals. Right? He does that for his ADUs. He does that for apartments that he built. Like I think he built like a 31 unit micro apartments where they're all a bunch of small studios that are 300 square feet that he rents out in like downtown Seattle area ish. So I think he owns a lot of real estate himself. He doesn't partner. I think for the most part, he does a lot. But then yeah, he in my mind, um, like he's doing real estate because he likes to play the game. But like in my mind, I'm just like, why is he still playing the game? Like, like at this point, he has way more wealth than he needs. I think he likes to donate. He likes to like give back, which is great. So maybe he just likes, that lifestyle of like, buying rentals, helping people and doing this. But like, if I kind of see his kids, I think his kids are like high school, college age. Like they seem so disinterested in real estate. I mean, that's just that might be my perception. I have no idea, but like they just seem so disinterested in doing the real estate or doing the videos that they're in. But like you said, like they're inheriting way more than they need. And from my experience, like from what I've seen from rich kids in LA, like they're just not motivated because like why? Like why would you be motivated if like you're gonna inherit a bunch of properties, that you're gonna have a bunch of money that you don't know what to deal with? That's why you see a bunch of kids that are like messed up and doing drugs and all that, despite having all the wealth in the world. So for me, I've always optimized to be like, I just want to be basically financially free, living an upper middle class lifestyle. Um, so that it kind of blends in, right? Like I don't like care to have like private jets and yachts and all that stuff. Like to me, it just seems like more of a headache. Like I mean, maybe I'll experience it one time, but like I don't know, it's just like too much of a headache and that big lifestyle. And there's a cost to doing that too, right? Like if you're focused on building money and all that, like you're compromising something else on the other end, right? Like just dealing with all the real estate, it's a lot of stress, right? Like no matter, even if your portfolio is owned free and clear, like there's still stresses associated with it. So like for me, I'm just like, I have my enough. I did real estate not to become worth $100 million plus. I did real estate because I wanted freedom, and I have to remind myself that that's why I did real estate to begin with. I wanted freedom, not to be worth $100 million plus. If I continue to grind, I can get there, but it's not worth it. Like, what's the point? Like you said, my kids may not even care about real estate. And I know too, the moment I have kids, oh my God, I might get so lazy with real estate investing. I might get sick of real estate investing, but the point of me investing was to be able to basically spend time with my future family and not have to work, right? And work on things that that I'm more passionate about, like creating content or sharing my journey or learning, right? Like that'd be my ideal lifestyle. Like sometimes I hate going to my W-2 job because like you're dealing with annoying people that you don't want to talk to, so much politics, bureaucracy, you have a long commute. If you see my videos, I'm recording my videos because I'm stuck in traffic all day, with my self-driving Tesla. So, it's that's why I did real estate. What was just to have a nice, easy lifestyle, to be honest, and live life on my terms. Um, so yeah, I don't need to make $100 million from real estate, right? Whatever. I don't need that flex or that validation at this point. Some more questions. How are you able to bring the down payment for your recent purchases? From active W-2. So for me, I bought my recent purchases were just for my W-2. Honestly, my wife and I, we just saved money. We live frugally. We have a high savings rate, and I just use that to, down. Well, if you follow my content, I did the new construction BRRR. So we bought the property about 260K all cash, which we saved up from our W-2 jobs over a bunch of years. And then when I did a cash out refinance, I ended up leaving about $40,000 in the deal. So I got most of my money back, but I left 40K in the deal. And that was from my W-2 income, right? Nothing fancy. Captain Planet, yeah, not crazy rich Asian, broke Asian guy. I met a few crazy rich Asians and they're at the next level, but they're not motivated. Once again, they're not hungry. They're not motivated because everything's given to them, right? I know like these two crazy rich Asian guys, their mom and dad bought them their house, a $2 million house with a beautiful view. They fully renovated the entire house and spent at least $400,000 to renovate the whole house. And to this day, their parents still pay their mortgage, their property tax, their insurance, the maids that come. I'm like, oh my God, you have everything plus that. And they're not that motivated at all because they have everything given to them. Right. And they're telling me that having a kid is easy. And I'm just like, well, kid's easy if you have a full-time nanny helping you and a maid and everything paid for. Yeah, it's easy if that's your situation. Right. But most people are not in that situation. So interesting. But yes, different mindset as a crazy rich Asian. Question. Remember you mentioning and doing a DSCR recently. Does a 5-year prepay bother you, especially after the point we have to pay? So I went through Convoy, which connected me to Ameritrust, and it is a lot more. The fees are more expensive because you're paying Convoy, which is the brokerage. So you pay them $4,000. I think my closing cost ended up being like I think $12,000 or something like that. So 4,000 went to Convoy, and then obviously Ameritrust charged their points and underwriting fee, so it's a little bit expensive. So next time I can save you guys $4,000. Just go straight to Ameritrust, right? You don't have to use Convoy like I did. But the Convoy is great in terms of strategizing, the plan and like how to structure the deal. And they introduced me to Ameritrust, so it's worth it in that sense. So my next deal, I'll probably go straight to Ameritrust, or you can use Lending One, who I partnered with. The 5-year prepaid doesn't really bother me as much because I locked in a 6.6%, which is not the greatest. But because I'm buying at a low purchase price, or a low loan amount of 200, and I think what was my loan? Like 230K was my loan. Like the difference between a 6.6% and let's call it a 5% is not that significant. It's like $200 or $100. Like that's not going to make or break my deal for me. So I don't mind doing the 5-year prepay because typically it gets you less. But you can do a 3-year prepay, you can do a 1-year prepay. But like for me, I just want to set it and forget it. And like I said, it's not too terrible. Like my PITI is roughly around I think like $1,600 a month. And that's at a 6.6% interest rate. If I had a 5% interest rate, it'd probably be like 1,400. So it's not going to make or break me. So I don't really mind a 5-year prepay, but yes, I hopefully interest rates do lower over the next 5 years. And it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 step down. So if I were to cash out refinance this year, I pay 5% penalty fee. If it's 5 years from now, it's only 1%, which is not terrible. Another question I see from TJ is, does your portfolio change how you feel about your W-2? Um, so the portfolio, so it's quite interesting. I'll show you my progression, and I have a video about this. Thank you so much for staying on an hour and a half. I didn't expect to go this long. Thank you for all 21 of you who are to this point. But pretty much when I was very happy to have a W-2 job from 2013 all the way up to 2021. So during that window, I was very grateful for my job. I was very grateful for my W-2 income because it allowed me to buy real estate, right? It allowed me to invest. And it was the key for me to fund my financial freedom. What happened in 2021? I got laid off, right? I got laid off from my hospital pharmacy job in Orange County. And that shook me. And that was the first time where I was just like, oh my God, I grinded. I poured everything into my W-2. I got a master's degree. I got a doctor's degree. I was a pharmacy director in the past. I was a pharmacy manager at the time. Like, this is a lower position than I'm used to doing. And I got laid off, right? And when you get laid off, it's like throwing darts at a board, if I'm being honest, right? Maybe they don't like you. Maybe you're too expensive. The fat pig gets slaughtered first. Whatever reason, I got laid off. And I remember in 2021, when I was growing my real estate portfolio to probably 2023, I hated my W-2 job. I was like, screw this W-2. I'm going to buy so much real estate. I'm going to basically retire through this Ryan Panetta's Amazon drop shipping store, through my own pharmacy. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to get up to like 90 units, and I'm going to retire from my W-2 job. And my goal was to be retired with $20K a month by 35. I'm 35 right now. I haven't hit my goal. I have not hit my goal, right? Unless I sell everything, then I hit my goal. So I guess you can call it, I sort of hit my goal, but I'm not benefiting from it because I need to sell my real estate to benefit from that. So during 2021 to 2023, I hated my W-2. But in 2023, I have a video about it as well. That was my most depressed year because that was my mobile home park. Didn't go as planned. Was losing 10K a month. Super stressed me out, stressed my girlfriend out, who's now my wife. Hit rock bottom. Started focusing on my health, all that stuff. Started creating content. I think that's when I started creating content from a dark place for therapy. And then, because I was getting slapped in the face by real estate, I was like, oh my God, I'm grinding 24/7 just to lose 10K a month versus I can work a W-2 and I can put in the least amount of effort in my W-2 if I want to and make money, right? We all have that person if you work a W-2 where they do absolutely nothing and they get paid a paycheck every single 2 weeks. So I was like, it made me appreciate my W-2 now. And now when I hear people complaining at the W-2 saying, oh my God, it's so hard, I'm so stressed. I'm like, dude, try doing your own business. Try doing your own business, right? Like you can grind at your own restaurant, at your own pharmacy and make $0 because you get paid last. So try that and then you'll appreciate your W-2 more. So now I appreciate my W-2 more. And I'm at a good place in my W-2, right? Like, I know I still have to do it, but I don't hate it as what I did before, right? So that's how I kind of progressed. So I was okay with my W-2. When I got laid off, I hated it. And then now I kind of appreciate it because it's helping me fund my real estate during the tough times, right? So that's how I kind of feel. So another question is, if you had an unpermitted ADU in a rental property and hard and expensive to legalize, what would you do? Rent it out for now, spend money to legalize. There's always risk city gets involved. Ooh, so that's tricky. So the Asian inside of me is like, well, if it's unpermitted and it works, great. Just rent it out. But yes, if there's a fire, if the tenant want to come after you and it's not permitted, you can get in trouble. If it's expensive to legalize it, you have to do the risk versus benefit of that, right? Is it worth it to do that? The neighbors can complain, or maybe it's grandfathered in because a lot of times, a lot of ADUs are grandfathered in, right? So you really have to like calculate your risk and your benefit, and is it worth it to do what? So that's a tough one. But yeah, there's some properties where there's unpermitted ADUs existing. That's very common in San Francisco, where people will convert the basement to like an unpermitted ADU. But if there's a fire, it's not going to be covered. If a tenant wants to like come after you, well, you can get in trouble as well. So really, really difficult situation to navigate that. Ryan Panetta launched a crypto thing that tanked too. So yes, NFTs at one point were very popular. And now no one talks about NFTs, right? Right. So quite interesting seeing that. Otani may be rich, but he's still a salary man. Yes, Otani makes $70 million a year, but at the end of the day, he's a W-2 employee for the Dodgers, right? And then he has a lot of obligations there. So yeah, that's quite true. A lot of the highest paid athletes are just very high W-2. Um, these lives are nice. You should do it more often. Yes, I'm trying to do it. My wife's at work today, so I have the freedom to do what I want. But normally, if I live when my wife's here, I will get a side eye, right? Because she wants me to spend time with her. But yes, she's at work today, so I'm gonna do one today. I'm gonna do one tomorrow as well. Let me know what topic you want me to talk about. Don't know what I want to do yet. I'll make some topic up unless you guys give me a suggestion. Financially would say you got ahead net worth from your single families in California or cash flowing multifamily. So that's a great question. So out of my $5 million of net worth from real estate, I would say probably 4 million of that is from my single family homes appreciating, doing nothing, right? Chalk that up to luck once again. And I did a cash out refinance of my equity in my California homes to go buy my 26 unit, where I was able to double the value of my 26 unit. So my 26 unit, it's kind of funny. I looked at the tax assessed price on the website. So when I bought it, it was $500,000 on the website. So why did I offer $500,000 on my 26 unit? Because the tax assessed price was $500,000. So I offered that. And from 2021 to like 2024, the tax assessed price was always $500,000. This year, when I logged in to pay my property taxes, the value is $1.6 million, which is what I had it valued at. I talked to a bunch of lenders and they had it valued at $1.6 million. And now the tax assessed price was $1.6 million. So I thought that kind of scared me a little bit, because now if they value at $1.6 million, they're going to have to pay property tax based off of $1.6 million. Right? So what would that do to me? That would mean that my property tax would triple. So if it was $6,000 at a valuation of $500,000, I was afraid. I still am afraid, to be honest. Maybe next year it'll triple on me. But now I have to go from 5,000 or 6,000 for a $500,000 valuation. If they make me pay property tax based off of 1.6 million, that's gonna be 18K. That's crazy, right? That's gonna wipe off some of my cash flow on that property, right? If that's the case, then shit, I'm probably gonna consider selling it and doing a 1031 exchange, right? So I hope it doesn't triple on me. But so it was kind of bittersweet seeing that. I'm like, wow, it's worth 1.6, which is what I thought it was worth. So I bought for $500,000. I put $300 of renovation. I'm all in for 800. So I made 800K. So my 20 unit, I didn't make it was not as much of a home run on that deal, but I probably made about $300,000 of equity on that one. So most of my net worth was made from the single family homes, with between appreciation and between principal pay down. So I calculated my principal pay down across my whole portfolio on a monthly basis. I have $10,000 a month in principal pay down. So every single month, my net worth goes up by 10K with principal pay down. So in a year, it's 120K of principal pay down. And remember, most of the money goes to interest. A little bit goes to interest or principal. So when I calculated, it's 10K a month. So I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. But you only get that once you own the properties long enough, right? So most of my net worth was made from appreciation. It was made from forced appreciation, and that's way more than I ever make from cash flow. Like my best case scenario, if I cash flow, let's say 10K a month, that's only 120K a year. So for me, what I realized that for me to really retire, I have to sell a property and then use that equity, pay taxes, and then pay off another property, own it free and clear. That's when I can truly be financially free from my W-2 job, right? So I would say for me, I've made most of my net worth, most of my wealth through natural appreciation and through forced appreciation. Cash flow has not been much for me since my investing career, because most of my rentals in California are probably cash flow negative. And the apartments, which were more cash flow positive, have been getting hit recently as well, because more CapEx, more vacancy, more repairs, more evictions, right? And higher cost of insurance and higher cost of property tax, maybe, as I mentioned. What's your take on Meet Kevin having sold all his rental portfolio after being big on real estate mistake? So I didn't actually know Meet Kevin sold his rental portfolio. That's where he got started. I know Graham Stephan is selling a lot of his rental portfolio. I didn't know Meet Kevin was. Meet Kevin makes a lot of money through YouTube. I remember Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan were making so much money from FTX as a sponsor. Remember FTX, the Ponzi scheme that they were marketing? And they were probably getting paid $100,000. And I don't blame them. If I was a YouTuber at the time and I was throwing a 100K bag to talk about FTX, I probably would have done it too. I don't know. Maybe not. I have no idea. I mean, I didn't really know much about crypto either. So maybe it's not on brand for me. Right. Like, so maybe I would have not done it. I don't know. It's hard for me to justify until I have a bag in front of my face. Um, so, Graham Stephan, Meet Kevin, they make a lot of their money from YouTube. They make a lot of money from sponsors. So at their point, Meet Kevin was self-managing the properties. He made a lot of money from that. So maybe like for him, it's not worth it to do real estate anymore. It's not worth the headache of managing his rentals. He'd rather just do YouTube, his other businesses that maybe make more money. So I get it, right? He started off as a real estate investor and now he elevated to like a business guy and then he make more money from that. So real estate doesn't make sense for him anymore. So like there's no right or wrong way to say it. Like Graham Stephan, he sold his house in Santa Monica because it was too much of a headache for him to rent it out and dealing with permits. So, but think about that's how they got started. And like I said, if I made as much as Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan from YouTube, maybe I'd sell my whole portfolio too. It's not worth it, right? Or what I would do is I would just sell half and use that half to pay off the other half and own it free and clear, and then just get a property manager to manage it, right? Like that's probably the smarter way to do it, in my mind. So, like Meet Kevin, if he owned like I think he owned like close to 30 rentals, I believe, in like Ventura, where he's from. I would have just basically sold maybe half. He usually have to pay off the other half free and clear instead of sell everything. That's the way I would do it if I were to do it myself. But who knows? Like you said, you might get sick of real estate and maybe you don't believe it's going to go up in value anymore because it's hard. Like a lot of homes in the Bay Area, like the house I grew up in is worth $2 million. Like I can't imagine it going to 3 or 4, but who knows? So it's hard to say, but I think for a situation, he's such a high net worth. I imagine Meet Kevin's worth probably $30 million plus, so he can do whatever he wants, right? He doesn't have to worry about his real estate anymore. And I think Graham Stephan's probably worth 20, 30 million as well. So, I think Graham is more conservative than Meet Kevin. So it's, I get why Graham is selling, but I'm surprised that Meet Kevin is selling because he seems a little bit more entrepreneurial. City has qualified me for an ADU MSD program to give 5 years to bring ADU to code, but needs me to submit a permit for ADU. Any software you recommend to use to draw myself? So I actually wouldn't draw it myself. I just would pay someone to do it. I think it costs maybe 10K, to be honest. I'm not experienced enough in that, to be honest, I know nothing about it. I just would pay someone to do it. I know nothing about it. Maybe if you know more than me, try it, but I'm not an engineer. I'm a farmer. I'm just a drug dealer who counts pills in the background, right? I'm just kidding about counting pills. I don't work in CVS or Walgreens. I actually got fired from Walgreens. Check out my videos. Most popular video for some reason. When you bought single family homes in California, how much was carrying cost per month? How much was it? How much has it improved now? How long did it take you to be cash flow positive? So for single family homes in California, I'll talk about my first deal. So I bought it for 800,000, 10% down that I saved for my W-2. So 80K down. The closing cost was about 1%. So it's $8,000 or $10,000, I would say. But then I got kicked back around $7,000 from my realtor because I found the deal myself. So my closing cost was $3,000. So I was all in for 83K. My PITI plus insurance, HOA, utilities was about $4,500 a month. So in the beginning, I was house hacking the property. I rented out each room for $1,000 each. So I was spending $1,500 a month. And once I rented it out, and my interest rate was 4% at the time. It was 2017. So it's really interesting seeing that. So in the beginning, when I moved out of the property, I rented out for $3,700 a month. So I was actually negative. I was negative. Because I had to pay for utilities. I was probably negative $400 a month, not including utility, not including capex, repairs, maintenance, and all that good stuff. And I was self-managing the property. But over time, I was able to raise the rents on the property from 3,700. I think I now charge him 4,100. So not that I didn't raise it that much. $200 every 2 years, $100 a year on average. So and then during COVID, I was able to refinance my loan from a 4% down to a 3.1%. So now I was able to basically, I think now the deal is kind of like just break even on the property. I mean, my property tax went up over time, my insurance went up over time. So like my HOA went up over time. So I think I only make honestly like $200 or $300 a month in positive cash flow, which is just essentially a reserve for my, capex. So I call it a break even deal. So yeah, it's not the greatest thing, but I bought for 800. Now it's worth 1.4 million, right? And my loan on it now is about 500, $500,000 on there. So, I have about 900K in equity in the deal. So that's how I made most of my money, right? I had the same tenant the whole time, super passive, is easy to work with, not as many repairs. So it's been great. So, maybe when I raise the rents, well, I may not raise the rents this year because times are tough, but like whenever I raise the rents at that point, maybe I'll actually make a little bit of cash flow, but it's mostly the principal pay down and the appreciation. So on that property, I think I get almost like $2,000 a month in principal pay down. So another question is, ORAT always says to buy positive cash flow. So this is probably my last question because I'm getting tired. I talked for 2 hours straight. So I'm a professor almost. I can work as a professor now. So ORAT always says to buy positive cash flow properties. He has 180 plus units. What's your honest take being in California? So if you look at Mike Zuber, he bought a lot in the early 2000s, I believe, right? When I was in elementary school. And he bought a lot in Fresno, California, which is a cheaper market, right? Central California is a lot cheaper. I think he has an unfair advantage there because he bought a lot there. And he owns apartments in Fresno. I think he said that he sold his single family homes at the peak of like '06 or something. And then he 1031 exchanged that multifamily, um, into multifamily real estate, which was at the bottom. So I think that's how he got started. But, for me, Fresno is a lot cheaper than like LA and these areas. It's more farmland. It's a different demographic of tenants with that. So it's really a different market. But I think he bought a lot of his deals early on when it was a good price. I think it's still a good price, but now he's such in a strong financial position that he can afford to buy more real estate. But as I mentioned earlier, like I think his kid has no interest in real estate. So like 180 rentals is like way too much. If I were him, I would just like coast and have it paid off. Or if he wants to take it easier and chill, he can sell half and use it to pay off the other half. But I get it. If you're creating content about real estate, you have to seem active in real estate with that. So maybe that's why he's continuing to buying, or maybe he likes buying real estate. But 180 rentals is like way more than I would ever need, right? Looking back, like for me, my sweet spot's probably 30 doors with that. So Hassan, I see your question here. Where do you see the most growth for real estate markets in the US or global? So I don't invest globally, don't intend to invest globally. In the US, I'm banking on the fact that Huntsville is going to grow big because Huntsville, for an A-class property, it's $300,000. It can rent for about $2,000. The average medium home is 400K, so it's below the median. It's favorable in terms of property tax if you live there. If you're an investor, they double it on you. The insurance is not too bad, and Space Command's going to Huntsville. I think Eli Lilly, which is a pharmaceutical company, is investing a bunch of money in Huntsville. So I hope that it starts to like double in the next 10 years. So I'm banking on Huntsville, but who knows? It's just my speculation. So anyways, hopefully you found value. If you want to join my school community on a free trial to network with other like-minded investors, if you want courses, you want coaching, I just dropped the price of my course significantly. If you want to use Steadily to save money on insurance, if you want to use Lending One to see for your investment loans, check out my link tree. All my links are down below. If you want to send me an email, my email is there as well. Otherwise, check out my channels. I post every day at 8 o'clock, and I try to do live streams twice a week. So let me know what questions you have. Hope to see you in the next one. Thank you all, and have a great weekend. Peace.